welcome. So I will just start. Welcome, everyone. We're going to do this as a collaborative, kind of more relaxed session. So I have my slides to view so that we can go back and forth, and I can also navigate and interact with chat at the same time, which Zoom doesn't seem to be particularly good at. Sort of if I go into full screen mode, it's difficult to interact with chat as well at the same time. So if you open your chat on your side, I would really encourage that while I talk you through some of the examples of the sorts of things that we have used as a sort of template for policy or for prototyping policy in the CCI. While I explain those things, please feel free to post comments in chat and questions. And I want to deal with this more as an interactive session and a discussion also in chat at the same time. So it is not a one-way thing and as a sort of a kind of a lecture or anything like that, but more as if you can use my slides more as a prompt. Also, I will come to a question at certain points, and then we will be able to. I mean, I will actively prompt you to actually give me your feedback, because I think that's what's really important about this. So let me just see if everybody has managed to connect their audio now. It looks like it. Great. So welcome again. So as I mentioned in the keynote, and I don't know how many of you had a chance to see it, I'm in a really, really great position of privilege to be able to feed policy directly from the grassroots experimentation with our creative community, which is reaching around 8,000 now, and they're from all parts of the world, literally from like New Zealand to Alaska, and from all kinds of backgrounds. And it's wonderful because we use music as a social glue, and creativity as something that unites people. And no matter who I speak with, if you kind of look at the grassroots kind of activities here on this slide, I can speak to Nobel laureates in physics, and if I say to them, come to an art event or something like that, they will say, "Oh, I'm a physicist. I'm not into the arts." But if I say music, weirdly they think of this as something different. They say, "Oh no, I listen to music, or I go to concerts, or I play an instrument." So it's an incredibly good starting point for conversations. It's an icebreaker, and it's something that allows so many people to access our space and participate. So from grassroots innovation to high-level policy, this is Carlos Moedas when he was Commissioner for Innovation, and they were planning the future of the Horizon program in, I think it was 2017, for the post Horizon 2020. We got invited to literally sort of interfere, make an intervention, and get his neurofeedback live, visualized and sonified to audiences of 700 VIPs at question time. So basically, he was answering questions live, and his brain activity was being shown to the audiences, which is very, very brave. And of course, he's one of the rare people who can pull something like that off without any rehearsal. We had no rehearsal whatsoever. It was all live. So we get to interfere in political decision-making processes with our experiments. I mentioned during my keynote, inclusion is a major, major aspect of this, getting as many viewpoints as possible. I'm sure that most people in this community, in the cross-innovation community, will agree, and everybody will practice that. And so, as I mentioned, there's this spans all kinds of continents, all kinds of tools, political divides, which is something that really is a really, really big deal for us. So, for instance, for a while, we refused to go to America and run our events there because we had problems with visas for some of these people. And of course, this was in Germany. We were able to get visas for these people. For instance, this is a MIT Media Lab documentary about us in Berlin. And you see just how many women are in our labs. And this was something that we noticed right from the beginning, because we put creativity at the center. Let me just make sure that I'm following you also at the same time. when I show you the statistics that we've had over the years, so we've been running, bizarrely, I was the director of a roadmap for the European Commission between 2011 and 12, and this community grew out of the roadmap. It wasn't planned at all. And when we looked at our statistics, our earlier statistics, or when we were running our pilots, we had a really strong difference in participation, female participation, if you did an engineering sort of emphasis. So the traditional hackathon, you would struggle to get 17% women. And if you had a creative lab, you would, or like STEAM, as in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, you would get instantly 33% women. So this is a very, very strong statistics. And this has been fed directly to DG Grow. They asked me to present this. Is there a video of the presentation during the Horizon 2020 event? There should be somewhere, actually. This was a big research and innovation conference, and it was live streamed at the time. So we had 700 in the room and 3,000 online. So it should be somewhere. Actually, we usually scoop all of our videos of all of our sort of activities from everywhere. I can ask our team. It was 2017 July, if that helps in your search on YouTube. And if not, I will get my team to dig it up and post it somewhere for you. Oops, let me go there. This is our, I mentioned during my keynote, really active involvement of women. So basically, we had that statistic and it wasn't good enough for us. So we said, okay, what percentage can we get to? Can we get to 50%? And this is why we got all these incredible women. Again, I can name them: Imogen He, Robin, Anouk Whitbrecht, Danica Kragic, Kelly Snook, Nancy Bain, LJ Rich, and Ginger Lee. These are just some of them. Actually, we had a whole afternoon of women champions of different things, like innovation in industry and champions of accessibility and all kinds. Just a whole afternoon of just women speaking, and we tipped that balance. That's kind of, I suppose, termed positive discrimination, I would say, but it's something that we had to be done because we wanted to push for this high percentage. And we even got Eva Kaili, MEP Eva Kaili, to be a woman in the lead of politics. So my question to you, for instance, how does this map onto policy? How would you map this onto policy? Because it's fine, doing this really strong activities to shift the balance, to really draw more people in. And you see the extent we had to go to. We had to go completely the other end of the scale, not creating a women's event. It's not a women's only or women in tech. This is a big, big difference. It's a completely inclusive event, but we tipped it in to the other side. So how would you do that? What would you do in order to ensure that we don't have to go to such extremes? And then I will show you the percentage that we actually did get to. I will let you have a few seconds just to type so that I can focus on your typing. Is it a tough question? Probably is. I'll show you. Maybe if you have ideas later, you're very welcome to put them in chat. 53% out of 800 plus participants, bearing in mind that there are other participants where other and prefer not to say, so like non-binary and prefer not to say, and male, where in the rest, the 47%. So this was a huge tipping point for us to be able to say we have a technology prototyping event where 53% are women from all kinds of areas and skills. Human empowerment is a major thing. I mentioned during my keynote several sort of ways in which we have enabled, giving people new kinds of tools with new sort of capabilities really works like a dream. And then people end up with running them through these sort of test beds, creating these enabling situations where their intellectual property is protected. And then we again tip the balance of the guys who have the tools for production, and then the guys who innovate on top of them, and the guys who innovate on top have their layer of intellectual property that's registered. Really, really massively important. And then being able to gauge early adoption and get lots of data from early adoption, and then being able to shorten this time to patenting, where, of course, as someone actually asked during the keynote, is patenting the main way to register IP? Well, actually, we argue that it isn't the most appropriate because it takes forever. It costs a lot of money. And with the kinds of things that we produce, they need to be timely and ready for the market. So one example project was where one of the projects that, in fact, that one that got a very, very short timeline to patent was actually created as a way to interact with systems from cultural creative industry. So basically, hands-free and eyes-free interaction with playlists through a particular type of gesture, not through hand gesture, something that was detecting the body being able to position itself in certain ways. And this got noted by the people who produce heavy vehicles for forestry and agriculture, because there the operator has to have their hands on the controls and their eyes on the job, and they cannot do much else while they're doing that. And if there are other parts of your body that you can engage in order to give signals, for instance, in an emergency or to activate systems, suddenly this becomes like an iPhone for them. This is like that kind of a breakthrough. So this is Rojan. I'm very proud to say that Rojan was one of our inclusion people, because he is an immigrant from Iran at the time and that year where everybody was closing their borders in Europe to immigrants. If you remember that time, he actually was creating a breakthrough application that industry in Europe wanted, and registering a Swedish patent. So this was him featuring on the Ben Heck show, which was getting enormous amount of viewers. So if you look at the sort of impact that these kind of measures that we implement have on people, you have this huge amount of follow-up funding for some of the projects that we supported at this early level, from seed idea to prototype. Forbes 30 under 30, MIT innovators under 35, and Rojan here as some examples. I showed you lots of women before, so I'm showing you a few men. But this is the sort of impact on policy then, because some of our experiments in those early experiments, in the early pilots, ended up as I was a member of Connect Advisory Forum for the European Commission, and I coordinated all the innovation recommendations from the Horizon program. I calculated 74% came directly out of the grassroots, and not because I said they should be there, but because I presented the case, and then industry colleagues who were on the advisory said, that works, yes, put that in. So it was amazing just how much resonated with my industry colleagues. And the recommendations for the AOTI, the Alliance on Internet of Things innovation, new guidelines for the market adoption was represented at the time to Oettinger as one of the main things, and introduction of innovation IP layer into the consortium agreements was a kind of a breakthrough, and all of our partners agreed on that. So what mechanisms would you see evolving from this, if you have any ideas? I mean, it's not compulsory that you respond, but if you have any ideas of where you would take it, please put it into chat. I will just run you through where we took it in the meantime. So basically, we looked at what was happening with these new frontier applications. And of course, the intellectual property was a challenge, and interoperability was a challenge. So how you talk to each other, and data, not enough data for training systems, and the use cases being unpredictable. And we took it to this industry commons. We scaled the methodologies to work across industries. So with technology transfer toolkits, with this way that we call it the IP stack, which is what we stack IP, different types of IP, including innovation IP on top of existing capabilities, which is incredible, because if you're integrated into the whole ecosystem with your intellectual property, it means you can go a lot further with it. Let me just, it says, try to answer the first question. Not sure if I understood it. Area of application for those technologies is important, so women can identify with the problem to be solved. Keyword, meaningful innovation. do not define innovation as just as technological novelty, but as new meaning for people's in everyday life. Yes, I would agree, absolutely. So women are very, very much goal-oriented, and this is a massive generalization, because of course gender is a sliding scale, so I know everybody's the same. But in our observations, what we can say that in the scale, you have maybe on one end of the scale will be the type of person who will engage with a particular technology as a point of inspiration. So they play with things. They like really like to play with what something can do, and then discover something when doing that. On the other end of the scale, and this is what we don't see enough in traditional hackathons, is the goal-oriented. So there may be people who are perhaps not very technologically advanced in their experience, but they have ideas for new kinds of applications, new kinds of areas that they want to solve, particularly social challenges, and they will learn whatever it takes to get there. So that's the other approach. And this is the two ends of the scale. We do find more women to be on that end of the scale. This is where they bring a really valuable perspective to the table. I'm not saying every woman's like that. I'm a geek for start. So it's human-centered, exactly, and problem-oriented or goal-oriented, I would say. It's not so much that they are interested in the problem itself. Like some people who are in research love the research question. That's their kind of motivator. We find more goal-oriented, as in sort of like, that's where I want to be. That's where I want it to, that's where I want to arrive with my solution, or that's what I want to solve. And this is what in society I find is a problem, and therefore it's a solution thing that they are really focusing on. So they will do whatever it takes to get to that solution. They will learn all kinds of coding, all kinds of engineering, all kinds of stuff with technology in order to get there. And we've seen that over and over again. And women change their careers. We have several use cases where that's happened. I hope that answers your question. This industry commons scale up went straight into European recommendations. It's now a track in the European Commission, and this is the foundation that I run, and I'm very, very privileged to have these amazing people on board. But this is also the starting point for the space of common understanding, which is really being built at the grand scale. So Onto Commons is actually 19 partners, some of which are clusters of partners. So you have, like, for instance, 2 Fraunhofer institutes. So you have EPFL that have teamed up with University of Oslo. That's one partner. Then 11 industry demonstrators from like Siemens, Bosch, Airbus, etc. International people who've offered demonstrators from Japan, Korea, China, and Brazil, and advisors from the US. It's an enormous momentum that this has gathered. So this idea that we start to build an industry commons where we understand each other across industries. This is how we've scaled it, and it's actually quite extraordinary, sort of where that's got to. If you think of, we're on one level going into inclusion and pushing women to be at the forefront and doing this type of thing and saying, creativity is super important for these things. And then you get to the other end of the scale where you're gaining momentum with global industry. Ways to express oneself. We have, I mentioned the case of Victoria Modesta, where she was able to train to directly from her brain change the lights on her outfit as a mode of expression, because she performs. She closed the Paralympics in London. She opened the Paralympics in Rio, for instance. So it's for her fantastic to have new modes of expression. I mentioned the breakthrough we had when we were asked by Slush, what did we want to do? I mean, in 2016, I opened the Slush music track with a keynote, and they said, okay, what would you like to do for next year? And we said, we'd like to run a 5-day lab in preparation to the opening of Slush, and then show what's possible to do in those 5 days with a performance on stage, because we think that the 3-minute pitch is not appropriate for the sorts of applications you need to experience that affect the human being at that level. So this part where we actually tested people being able to drive the musical scale directly from their brain and train their brain to activate, to govern, to have governance over the system, to actually dictate what happens in the system. So that we're not doing sensors reading people's brains, it's the other way around. It's the human in the loop. And where people realize that they can drive systems, they can drive the musical scale directly from their brain, and with more training, they can maybe stop on a note. And then we realize that our blind singer has extraordinary abilities in this sense, and she can actually go and do it immediately without training, and she has a phenomenal talent, and it's completely changing what our perception is of the future of work and who is able-bodied and who is supposedly disabled, because disabled is only in relation to the tools you give to people. And this is what's really important to remember. And so basically being able to give new tools to people and that allow them to express themselves and activate systems in new ways, and discovering these new talents where she is the able-bodied one. That this is a big breakthrough for us. Tracking intellectual property as this is happening. So where people are building these systems, we register them in the chain. And now there are some European actions that are trying to develop this further. And then taking it further with ZKM, we were invited to sort of invade ZKM over the weekend and do a lab. And there was this incredible thing where there was NASA data that was used to map rotation of the planets in respect of each other. And this was created in our labs in Stockholm. But now neurofeedback was connected to that. And the experiment was, how does the brain react to these complex systems? Because effectively it's a complex set of parameters. And we realized that every brain had effectively a stamp. It had a signature, if you like, when it comes to these kinds of interactions with complex parameters. I will just play very short, very short clip. So this is the brain interacting with NASA data and a simulator that's simulating NASA data parameters of the rotation of planets around the sun and the relationship to each other. And the sort of patterns you saw with this particular brain interaction are different from when you plug in, like the girl that we saw earlier, who insisted on wanting to try it, even though it was too big for her. And the purity of the child's mind is amazing, because her level of focus is so high that you get very distinct geometrical shapes. And this is in line with the idea of harmony of the planets. This is Kepler's idea of the harmonies of the planets, where these geometries, these perfect geometries, are actually ingrained in the relationships between the spatial relationships that we are surrounded by. And it's really, well, mind-blowing. I suppose it's a kind of a cheesy way to say that, but it's literally that. So this is what allows you this new forms of expression. So again, what are the benefits of hooking people up to systems and allowing them to find these relationships? If anybody has any ideas, put it into chat. I will play another little video for you, because I will show you where we took it. Again, this is in Aveiro 6 weeks ago, I think, a lab during COVID. And here there was, this was adapted to being able to detect empathy, also in an environment where artists and musicians could interfere with your sense of empathy and could encourage it or break it. So let me show you.
The project we are doing here is a performance where two people will be facing each other and they are plugged with sensors. They are using EEG sensors and heart rate sensors, and with the help of other artists and musicians we are creating an audiovisual orchestra to help these two people to synchronize themselves without touching each other.
The main role of the musicians in this project is to find a way to interact with each other and to help the people achieve an empathy moment, at least.
My role in this project is to represent visually the two subjects, so two human faces. The visuals are reacting real time with the heartbeat and the brain activity. When they reach empathy, both shapes and particles will merge into one single object.
After we showing the connection between these two subjects, the musician has the power to unmerge that connection by playing something loud or something dissonant.
This is a dream for any musician to be able to know in real time what is happening to the audience in terms of emotion, so we can better our performances.
So it's wonderful to see from Eva on here. Before I mentioned this, she said, build upon each other's perceptions, which is totally related to some of the things that are happening here. But you can also see why this exercise is important, not just for the musician, but for the scientist, for the psychologist, for the neurologist, for the neuroscientist, etc. Accessibility. I mean, this does have a lot to do with accessibility. I already mentioned some of this before. How much accessibility is. Yeah, thank you, Samuel. Very nice comment. Thank you. The accessibility plays a big part because accessibility pushes us to fix it. For people who perhaps are not considered to be as I say again, we have a wrong perception about there's no such thing as normal. Everybody is different. But we pushes us. So it's really wonderful in that respect. So we have really addressed it. So this is, for instance, human instruments. This is some of our projects that are listed in the Guardian newspaper in London. 3 of them, in fact, have been part of our community. But you see a very amazing jazz musician who had a horrific accident a long time ago. And only through this system that was created for him by Human Instruments, who are part of our community, he was able to express himself properly as a jazz artist. Daniela, you're very welcome. Thank you. So basically, it's not just a case of hitting a note for him. He needs to really be able to express himself as an artist using only his face. And he was able to do it to the extent that he was then performing live, and this is on Portuguese television, performing as a jazz. He was a jazz trumpeter originally. He's performing as a jazz artist now with a full range of ability. And just a little video from Tim Palm or DJ Arthro. His name, DJ Arthro, comes from a particular condition that he has, and he is an incredibly positive person. I want you to hear him.
DJ Arthro is my artist name, and I do electronic dance music. I built my own spaceship, I call it, and control music and video and light at the same time.
I run an organization called Human Instruments. We're helping DJ Arthro because currently his workarounds restrict him in the way that he has to use his nose to start loops and stop loops. It doesn't leave him free to then play the instruments.
So you see a very, very simple device in technology terms. A lot of the solutions are not, groundbreaking technologically, but when they are applied in the right way. So if you look at where this is being positioned, so this is a hacked wheelchair that DJ Arthur did himself because he wanted to be more agile and not have a cumbersome wheelchair. And then where this sits on the wheelchair is particular for his use case, but it actually uncovers possibilities for others. And you see what's happening. He calls his arms chicken arms. That's his term. And he's not able to do what people do normally. And his dream was to play the guitar. He always has been. And we had to build something, or rather human instruments, together with Tim Yates from Drake Music in London. They built something that suddenly gave him additional abilities. So he created something as amazing as this, if I'm able to play it. Okay, so you get the idea. It's really accomplished composition, and this is him winning the award at the Music Tech Festival. Rather, the three of them as collaborators. And 2 days later, it was featured on BBC Click after it was premiered, his music and his case. But then his music was played on BBC Six Music by Tom Robinson, who's a legendary DJ. And this is incredible, And then he was invited to London to make a gig, and he usually travels with two assistants. You see down here on the bottom right, him at airports, he comes with two assistants. And whenever we take him places, we have two people extra who take care of him. And then they got given a 50,000 krona prize by KTH Innovation. This is the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, to develop this further, because they felt that this application actually would have more applications for other people, not just people with disabilities. And then the incredible thing happened, that they won the International Sound Awards at Reeperbahn, and in the culture part. And it was so wonderful, because this is such an amazing journey. This is like 1 year of just riding the wave. And of course, he founded a company. He's doing music production, music editing. He's a computer science student at the same time. And his parents said, "What are you doing? What do you mean you do have a media company? You can't have a media company. You're going to be computer science lecturer. That's what we have in mind for you." But they are very nice people, and they are. This is them thrilled at the award. So again, how can this idea scale? And that's the sort of a big question. Thank you, Eva, for your comment. Thank you, Samuel. Also a lovely comment. Thank you. So basically, how can this idea scale? So this is the important part, that first of all, what is being solved here is using basic technologies like the microbit, and also is how it's been set up. Sometimes simple solutions are really, really very, very good, because this is an area of application. It's application driven. So you know what you're solving, and you know how exactly you're going to do it. And then you realize that this is really useful solution for lots of people. And so you can start to test it, how it helps other people. So this is how you scale it. You scale it. We're saying, okay, we've started with something that's really useful. How can we now take this to other areas or other sectors or in other kind of forms of application? Just to give you a cue, for instance, the same way as happened with the Rojan, where we took it to the primary industry, where people who drive vehicles don't have the capability of activating certain controls. This can give them a third layer, let's say, of activation. For technology frontiers, clearly we are in that space, very much working on with the neural networks, AI. For instance, I'm not going to play it for you. It'll be very, very loud, but I do suggest that you go and look up DadaBots on YouTube after this session. CJ Carr, who's part of DadaBots, with Zach Bukowski, because his partner. They've been they're ex-Berklee College of Music in Boston, and we met in our MTF in Boston. We were in the middle of Microsoft Research Nerd Labs in the middle of MIT there, and CJ joined us and never left since. This was back in 2014 or something. So he's been developing groundbreaking stuff with neural networks for music. And if you think of a music format as being this kind of 3.5-minute Motown record, which was based on the size of a vinyl, and on the kind of practical radio slots that it could fit into. And of course, Motown turned it into an art form. It's a complete language of how you create a pop track. It hasn't really been broken apart from the concept album, which was the same but kind of extended over a 12-inch record, sort of Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon type of stuff. Suddenly, digital stuff comes along, and what do? We just do 3.5-minute tracks because that's what we know how to do. CJ turned this on his head. We have neural nets. He's been working with neural nets for so long. He has this, in this case, for instance, he's showing a death metal machine, which is basically neural network death metal ongoing track. It never stops. It's on YouTube. Look it up. It's awesome. It really works with death metal. It also works with John Coltrane. He's got a John Coltrane, really experimental ongoing John Coltrane record. The first thing they did, of course, is, the first thing you do with these things is you do something that's very familiar. So he trained the system to do Kurt Cobain's voice, and it was so spooky, and it got featured on everywhere, sort of TechCrunch and everywhere. And then the Beatles and stuff like that. And the system starts to learn, and it's really uncanny. But this is a new format for music, and the ongoing death metal track is just insane. It's amazing. So won't play it; it'll bust your ears. But working with robots, working with humans in the loop, and in this case, deliberately humans in the loop. A little bit, but this was in the AI department at Örebro University, so literally with high-level professors and researchers, and papers come out of this aplenty. And just very, very brief intro to what the projects were about here.
With Music Tech Fest, we wanted to give our students and mentors a chance to engage in creative workshops and to help inspire them on how they can use their knowledge within AI in new ways. People from multidisciplinary backgrounds were brought together to create prototypes as well as to further develop earlier projects, such as the Loop-Free project, which is an award-winning accessible musical instrument that enables wireless looping in Ableton Live, which is a software and hardware for music creation and live performance, without the need for screen interactions, where AI was used to craft an intelligent interactive video system that was reactive to facial expression. In another project, the Accents in Motion team developed a dance AI, where they used sensors on 2 dancers that, together with the possibility to explore distance between them in our robot lab and live coding in their dance performance, they used that data to make the dancers create music with their movements instead of the other way around. They used AI for gesture recognition and for training WaveNet models.
Hang on. So I just put in the message there, DataBots, it's the name of the outfit, and they're a company as well, and they author papers, and I will actually show you one of them just in our final bit of the session. But if you search on YouTube, you should be able to get DataBots on there. So just to show you the labs in Aveiro, which I mentioned, which were extraordinary in the sense that they were conducted during COVID with all of the measures in place, and it was incredible because it was hugely challenging, and we were really concerned, but we had complete support from the regional government and all of the measures in place. And I'm glad to say now that it works. and I can kind of we have best practice, if you like, for this type of thing. And this is Christian Gutmann, who's vice president for AI for CIC202, which is the third biggest ICT company in the world. And he asked us if he could be part of our lab. So this is just a case in point that basically we have people from all kinds of walks of life and all kinds of industries and all kinds of positions who want to spend a week with us, because this is really interesting and informative for them. So just to show you this another green world idea and how we went about it.
Come out on a little sort of field trip with MTF Labs. So I guess we were in the lab thinking about data flows and stuff, and working with sounds, and we just wanted to make a connection with the kind of material, the local ecologies. So we've come out to these salt pans, which are right on the edge of town. It feels like a sort of fertile place to imagine sort of future nature cultures.
I need to show you Sophie's and Felican's. Sophie Crespo and Felican McCormick are active in Berlin, and Nestor is based in Vigo in Spain. And they collaborated on this incredible live, it was a live performance with neural nets and all the data and visuals that they collected. So neural nets were generating, it was live VJing in real time with neural nets. It's kind of first, and Sophie never done it before. She's a real veteran in experimenting with neural networks and creating artificial life forms. Rather, in this case, it was deliberately trying to draw attention to an ecological area in Europe. It's a protected wetland, which is not even mapped on human maps because it's not supposedly important, and so to draw attention to it is create layers of artificial life on top of this to make it really compelling and to make people think about it. So. So this was also a live generative sound by Nestor. This gives you a flavor, and this is an ongoing project, so it's being evolved further. But it was quite an incredible experience at the time. And again, so how would you take this kind of experiments across disciplines? And the thing I can say is that they come to us. I mean, you saw of the VP of theatre, they want to witness how things are done, and they want to they all have different takeaways to take back with us. So this is an incomplete sort of list of people who supported this community, but they come to it and they take different knowledge and they come to it from their perspective, and they have different takeaways and different ways that they could apply this kind of way of thinking. So basically the knowledge spread. So knowledge, of course, it's my final bit. How we're doing? We're doing good for time, I think. And of course, knowledge starts very young, and this is, I'm always thrilled to see little kids. So that's a little girl performing live on stage in front of the London Symphony Orchestra in London, and she'd never been on stage before. She never built anything with electronics before, anything with coding before, and her parents afterwards said, "What did you do? Because my child now wants to be an engineer," and she never, wanted to, never even thought about it before. And of course, the performance aspect is incredibly important because it's not just for them to complete a task or to have a sense of having having the result from the sound, because basically sound is really satisfying in the sense that if you get it right, you hear it. So that is an aspect that's really good. But the sense of achievement comes from standing in front of huge audiences and then suddenly getting this acknowledgement and acclaim, because people love it when kids are on stage and performing with this. And we use it, we do this all the time. And we did one with children even during COVID in October, and it was amazing. They were all wearing this huge kind of like sci-fi masks and things. But of course, there's this community, the international community, academic community that wrote our manifesto. And we didn't prompt them; they decided to do it, inspired by what happens at the festival. And it has lots and lots of undersigned people on it. You can go to manifesto, to our manifesto page, musictechfest.net or mtflabs.net also. I mean, I will write it into here, and you should be able to see the manifesto on there. As I say, lots of people undersigned, even policymakers and project officers. It's amazing. And then this is kind of byproduct. So you see CJ and Zach writing papers, and this is because they feel they should. Oh, well, we're generating knowledge, so we should write papers. So they get accepted into publication, not because they are in an academic career. And then, of course, on the top left is a paper that was written by the AI researchers at University of Örebro as a result of the collaboration with our community. So it was only 2.5 days, and they got a paper out of it. I mean, that's pretty good going. And then, of course, a review of musical accessibility interfaces. We're part of that is for the KTH Royal Institute of Technology that took some of the MTF projects that were generated within 1 week. So again, pretty good yield. And then 1 week of generating the blockchain white paper back in Berlin in 2016, which was actually quite sobering exercise. It's just some examples, but they just come out as byproducts of what happens. And then deliberate and incentivized collaborations. So Aveiro was amazing because of quarantine and because some people could not. Yes, you can, Eva, if you want to be part of our labs, if you go to mtflabs.net / where's my / register, you should be able to just fill in some things about yourself. We have a GDPR compliant database, and you can manage your own data on it, and you can tell us about the work that you do and things, not just the work that you do in your occupation, but also the things that you do maybe that are not strictly part of your profession, but that you are interested in. And we tend to, that's heavily curated our things, so we tend to look through our community, take people to, we don't make anybody work with someone else deliberately. We allow them to choose their whoever they're interested in, and this happens very organically, very naturally. Okay, thank you, Eva. It'll be a pleasure, actually. And this is and then we encourage this international collaboration. So, for instance, during COVID, we couldn't get Mexicans to fly over, but there is a wonderful group of art and science researchers. They are called the Art and Science Research Group in the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, so basically Mexico City. Mexico City, so it's a national autonomous University of Mexico. And they collaborated in all of the brainstorming sessions in Aveiro via Zoom. And there's a work that's inspired then by the, I mean, this is a very, very short clip, but just so you get a flavor of it, this work carried on. It's been featured on all kinds of media in Mexico.
Our intention is to materialize the experience of an impossible journey with a third body that would enable an intersubjective relationship of those who inhabit it, where subtle and atmospheric sounds were intertwined with other sounds that were also gathered in the field recordings made to the lagoon in Aveiro in search of a resonance and somewhat remote togetherness with the festival.
So you just get the feeling for what their intention was, what they were trying to do, and so I think the final piece is something like 17 minutes long because they evolved it since, and there's collaborations that are happening across to Europe, and it's, as I say, been featured in all sorts of places. But this was a breakthrough for us, was to be part of the curricula of student curricula. So the lab ran in parallel with the labs that were at University of Porto and the Technical University of Porto. So the two universities in Porto, in Portugal, because Aveiro is just outside of Porto. And again, during COVID, students gathering and working in parallel. So getting inspired, we ran something like a huge number of inspirational talks with DJ Spooky, for instance, was talking about sonifying Antarctica, with Chicks on Speed, who were showcasing all their work, talking from Barcelona and from Hamburg and from they also work with NTNU in Norway, so we're working with their students. So lots of international cooperations were happening simultaneously. So we had a lot of Zoom interaction at the same time as the live interaction inside the labs. But this being part of a curriculum, utilizing all of these inspirations, feeding it to students, and students being able to brainstorm with their experts in the room, and then pushing their PhD projects forward and their MA projects forward was really a first, and something that we want to evolve. So, hang on, there it is. So just a brief clip to show the two course leaders, professors who engaged the students in this way.
Let me congratulate you actually for pulling this off under these, extraordinary conditions. You made it happen against all possible odds. And second, thank you for including us and challenging us to be part of the MTF.
For the first time in their lives, we challenge them to challenge themselves to think really out of the box.
So that's just a very short clip. Yeah, and we are just about to come to the final bit of the session. So again, how can it be shared across disciplines? So you can see that we are collaborating with departments, with universities, that people from different disciplines come to us. This is really the answer. Why is that so blurry? Okay, there it is. That's better. It was a moment of suspense. You can see all kinds of wonderful faces. In fact, we did 100 podcasts. Recently, we reached a milestone with our community. You see people like DJ Spooky, top right corner. Above him is the lady who's in charge of innovation for Lufthansa. Cory Doctorow, who's a champion for the commons and the new ways of managing IP. Christian Gutmann, who's the VP of Theatre, above him Matthew Horn. Oh, look, there's Bjorn from ABBA. He's a big investor in music tech and the companies that are dealing with new kinds of ways in which music industry is managed. And next to him is a lady that was the PA for the bosses of Google, telling us about their experience, etc. So basically, incredible people who are part of this community, who are hugely inspiring. Further down, sort of center right, you can see Matthias Robo, who's in charge of Music Tech Germany, if you're interested in joining them. And he was part of our management team, and then he went off and did Music Tech Germany, and he's doing a fantastic job there. So if you're interested in that, you can join them. There are really amazing people from all kinds of backgrounds, and basically this is how we make sure that the knowledge is spreading across all of the disciplines. Are we in connection with Experimenta? I know of them. I'm trying to think. We are in probably not directly, Roberto, but I believe that we were part of something together in Paris that was pre-COVID. So if you have a nice connection for us on their super happy to join forces. Absolutely. So there's been thank you, Roberto. There's been talk about them, and also the experimental lab that's just outside Paris. That's also doing fabulous stuff. So I mean, of course, there are communities out there doing exploiting kind of the same sort of principles at heart, I would say. So yes, so we have we're literally 2 minutes away from wrapping up. If you have any final questions, I'm happy to do one final answer. Last chance. If not, you're very welcome to contact me. I will put here in chat my direct email, which is how big is the team when you're organizing labs? Depends on the size of the lab. It's been let's say between 20 and 42. It's been sort of the range. So if the lab is a big one, then it's the higher number. And we work very much like a kind of open organization, like a Linux organization, where people will take a week off from whatever else that they're doing, book it to work with the community. And like, for instance, the VP of Theatre will take a week to spend with us to contribute to the community. The same goes with the organizing teams. Some are working with us on a regular basis, at a part-time, or they are taking exact amounts off to be part of this. So you can contact me. I will give you the MTF Labs email here. So that's an easy one. If you have further thoughts after this session, and if you wish to connect for any other reason, I posted already the link to registrations. If you do want to at any point participate or at any point get involved, you're very, very welcome, because, as I say, we're hugely inclusive and we welcome more and more inputs, and we always want to get more. We don't want the same kinds of ideas over and over again. So your ideas are very welcome.